constantly praying. Now that doesn't mean going down the road driving with your eyes closed. It's an attitude of your heart. Stay in that proper communication with the Lord so that when something does happen, you may only have a moment to whip up a prayer and get it to the Lord and then deal with the situation. You remember Nehemiah going into the king's court? He was the food taster and the wine taster for the king. And he was concerned about his people, the Jews, that the city was run down, the walls were knocked over, the temple wasn't rebuilt. And so he was saddened at any time a king who is expecting to be assassinated any minute. That's why they've got these people tasting all their food. If he sees you and you're not happy and glad and everything's okay, he's going to get a little nervous. And so he asked Nehemiah, what's going on? You know, are you plotting something against me? And Nehemiah freaked out because he could have been beheaded on the spot if the king felt threatened. And he shoots that prayer up to the Lord. Lord, help me answer this. And he gathered his wits. The Lord gave him the words to say. And the king was moved in his heart, and the millions of dollars worth of equipment that they sent back to Nehemiah to help him rebuild the city, the walls, or the temple. You know, these things were done in different phases. So the 70 weeks of Daniel, that's another whole other story. That was Artaxerxes at a certain span, I think it was 486 BC or something, right to the day that this timing sequence for the Messiah to be cut off, 469 weeks. I mean, 69 weeks of 7 years and all, 490 years or something like that. Right away, that the Messiah came and was cut off, just like Daniel said he would be killed by the people he came to relate to. So you've got to be careful when you're around a king, and if you're the wine taster or the food taster. So you maintain a constant communication with the Lord, an attitude of being right with God, and on the short sin list, as it were. Confess those things, get them off the list. Agree with God about them, and you know, John 1:9, and those verses we know. We can communicate, but let's modulate the beam. Let's not just be sending Morse code through this thing. So I'm going to pull this off axis again, and turn the lights off, and then we're going to turn a modulator on, which I have. We're going to turn the lights on so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, I've got a tape recorder playing. Right now, that spot of light is blinking on and off thousands of times a second. But we don't see anything going on because these eyes, persistence of vision, we can't see it. But let's line the beam of light up with the photocell over there. See if I can find that. Oh, there it is. I know I'm not allowed to dance here, so my hands are dancing. I stand right here. This demonstrates another physical property of light. Light cannot pass through the dense medium. Unless you turn sideways. You've got to keep your hand off here. You want to hear the thing, right? Now, people wonder, you know, how can you ever remember anything in school? If it all drains out of your head when you go to bed at night. I never did figure that one out. Now, I had a fun time one time listening to a young lad explain to his mother about the molecular structure of Dr. Ortner's brain so that light at a certain frequency can make its way through the brain cells and get out the other ear to get over to his electric eye. I didn't have the heart to tell the mother the kid was all wet, you know. Thought it was a good explanation. That wasn't true. Okay, we got volume controls in this. All you need is a little piece of light to get through. You can reconstruct the whole thing. Turn that off before you go crazy. That's a modern version of Colonel Bogey's March from the Series of Bird of Quiet, anyway, in case you wonder. Laser light is very different, very special. But we were communicating complex information, thousands of different frequencies being modulated to create that music. When we were in Europe, when the Apollo 13 crew was on the way to the moon. That's the crew that they almost died out in space. Many of you may remember when that happened. The Europeans were coming to us saying, we are praying for your astronauts. And we appreciated that. You see, there's a verse in the Bible that says, if we walk in the light as he is in the light, we have fellowship one with another. Okay? What's fellowship? Two fellows on the same ship. That's what I remember. Two people being able to talk things over and relate, you know? But there's a conditional statement there, isn't there? If we walk in the light, then we have the fellowship. And that guy said, wait a minute, I figured any time you talked to God, he heard you. Oh, really? Is that what you think? How many of you husbands have read that very haunting verse in the Bible that says to treat your wife in a very special way, otherwise your prayers will be hindered? You mess with that lady, and you're messing with God's child, and he thinks a lot of that little lady. Our guys, you know, we're wired differently. Obviously, in fact, we can't help the way we are. Let me give you a little medical lesson here. Between 16 weeks and 21 weeks, after the baby's conceived, the babies that are going to be boys, at 16 weeks, that's just a few months old, a very, very powerful hormone begins to flow through the baby's body. Not at the levels of puberty, but that testosterone is generated at 16 to 21 weeks. And it starts flowing through the baby's body. Every time that testosterone molecule hits a nerve cell, it will destroy some of them. There's a big bundle of nerves between the two halves of the brain called the corpus callosum. And in boys, when that testosterone gets to the corpus callosum, it actually burns open some of those connections between the two halves of the brain. That's why males are so focused on things, all right? And females can look at things logically and emotionally and multitask. I don't know how you guys do that, but you do. The thing is, men, unfortunately, we are born half-witted, basically. Okay? And we can't help it. So you ladies got to help us out, right? Because our focus is visual. Ladies are able to communicate far better. They're a couple of years ahead, usually, of students in school with communication skills and writing skills and such. So guys, you know, we look at something and we get excited, oh, here's this real nice car or an airplane, or this is a nice fishing boat, or here comes this lady walking down the street and she forgot to put all her clothes where they belong, you know? And guys get distracted from that. You know, we can't help it, but we're responsible for what we think after we get distracted. That's the key. There's nothing wrong with you noticing some colorful outfit or whatever. But what you do after with that data is what you are responsible to God about. And you girls have to help the guys this way by not triggering those emotions in those guys, because you'll mess them up. And you're responsible for messing people up too. So, you know, anyway, I digress. Let's go back to the communication thing. This guy in Europe was the one that said, you know, how could God be listening to all these different people talking at the same time, praying in the same, all these different languages. And we said, sir, look, two principles here. You don't have to understand how something works, but you must meet the proper conditions. All right? You don't have to understand. Some of you understand how those lasers work. You electronically pump up the gases and the electrons flashing back and forth, and they jump up to a higher energy state, and then they cascade back to the original orbital shell and release a quantum energy at 6,328 units, and that stuff is reflecting back and forth between the Brewster windows. And the first one, there's only 9% reflected, so 10% of it leaks out. Goes all the way across the room, hits a glass eyeball over there, turn it back into sound. You know, and you say, I don't know, there's music coming out of that guy's nose. It is glass eyeball. I don't know how I did that. You don't have to understand all that. You've got to meet the right conditions. There could be music, important information communicated in that laser beam. We could wave it all over, wouldn't hear a thing. So when we line it up with that focus, then it comes in loud and clear. We met the conditions, the information gets transferred, and you can act on it. had some real mad atheists stand outside the door and listen for a while, and then they come to the back row, and then they come halfway down, and last night they're sitting right in the front row. They come up afterwards, one guy in an Air Force base. He was known as the big mouth atheist. He was lambasting me, dissing me constantly until I came and did the programs, and God worked on his heart. He came up afterwards, eyes just shining. Now I understand, now I see it. And he became a proponent for Christianity after he left. God can work on anybody's heart. Our responsibility is to get the message out and let God's Spirit work on a person's heart. And we use technology to try to interest people in maybe some more of the scriptures and such, but basically we've got two people in the world, and you're going to meet both kinds. Like insects. What's the insect that loves to flutter around lights? Moths and butterflies and things. Okay? There are people like that. They'll be interested in what you're saying, and you can relate to them. And then there are other people. What are the kind of critters that you turn the lights on and they run? Cockroaches. Yeah. Would you rather be a cockroach or a butterfly? That's a no-brainer. So, you'll find people like that. But God can work on a person's heart. It's not our responsibility to try to convince anybody of anything. It's our responsibility to be faithful to the calling of sharing the gospel with the people around us. Bloom where you're planted, as they say. We use light, color. We'll talk about color tonight. I'm going to show you there's no such thing as white light. And there's no such thing as a white object either. So any of you wearing white shirts today, you should be embarrassed. You knew what color that really was. We'll tell you tonight, so you can be embarrassed all afternoon and then come back tonight. All right? We'll make some liquid light tonight. We'll talk about fireflies and a lot of fun stuff. I need a lot of volunteers tonight too. But this morning, the light of the world, the Lord Jesus Christ. And maintain that communication through His Spirit. Your heart is open to His leading. You have an opportunity of being sensitive to a person He may want you to talk to. Sometimes He will say, don't talk to that person yet. They're not ready for you, but I've got somebody else over here that loves to play basketball with that person. And they'll play with them for a while, and maybe they'll come and hear more about the Word. You just never know. But just be faithful to that calling, and God will work through you as His light reflects from your character, and His character reflects through your life to the people around you. It's an amazing, amazing lifestyle. Absolutely amazing. Pastor, would you close for us, please?
Will you please stand?